Hi, welcome everyone to a very Halloween type um, painting slash drawing tonight. I'm going to be guiding you step by step. For those that are new, my name is Anita Thompson, and I own Art Venture Workshops, and I'm a mobile-based art business. I teach mostly for libraries, but I have other venues as well. And if you like what you see here tonight, you can be added to my weekly newsletter. Just let me know at the end. You can private message me your email. It comes out about once a week. I just released one today. So it has most of the programs that are out. I think I have two other libraries that are going to be adding things sort of last minute to the end of November. So I will update those lists or the newsletter. Okay, so we need 9 by 12 watercolor paper. If you want to do it smaller, you are welcome to do it smaller. Um, as I mentioned, you need a few of the colored pencils. Those are optional. I just like to use them to create some more texture and some more, just to make it a little more bolder. So this is mostly watercolor. You can see as I'm bending the page, you can kind of see the shininess. That's where I added the colored pencils. Did I say that this is mostly colored pencil? What I meant to say is it's mostly watercolor. But there's some colored pencil additions here. Okay, so we're going to start. We're going to start drawing. And I promise this is going to look incredible. For those doubters, it's going to take up all of our page. So let's get started. I also want to just remind anyone who is new, you want to make sure that you are on speaker view on your device so that you are able to see this picture large. And I'm just going to adjust my screen here and give you guys a little more. There we go. A little more light in another direction. And I'm also going to focus in a little more on my page. Okay, so we're going to draw this first. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have enough room at the top for our moon. So we're going to draw the moon first. So we're going to go into the upper right corner here and we're going to draw the moon. I'm going to just move this down here. There we are. Okay, so upper right corner, and you're going to draw kind of like a 3/4 circle for our moon. You're going to make sure that it is light. You know, you want to be able to erase this or lighten it up at some point. We're going to draw our bat in the bottom portion of our moon. And so basically what we're going to do, and I'm going to go closer so that you can see this, is we're going to draw the bat as if he's pretty solid. So this is his head and his ears. And we're going to start making his wings come out as well, like this. So as you can see, he's going to be kind of breaking through the moon here. And we have some curves for his wings, right? And we want to make sure that those curves for the wings stop at his body here. And also, because it's in perspective, we have his little feet right here. They're pointy. And you're going to erase the part of the moon that is going through his bat wing there. And we make 2 little circles for his eyes. Now you can add a little more detail to the right wing over here and add some more kind of mini curves. Oh, let me get Renee on. Nice. Hi, Renee. We just started and I'm going to recopy stuff in the chat. So good to see you.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome. See, I just put, basically we're just drawing on the 9x12 watercolor paper right now. And we just drew our moon with our bat. And we are about to go on to the rest. So if you've got the moon and the bat, you're good. I'm going to move up a little with my camera so that I'm a little more overhead. So excuse my clumsy attempt to do so. All right, so we're going to break this down into shapes. So we've got our black cat in a pumpkin. We're going to do the basic shape of where the stem is going to be. So if we take a look here at the moon and where the stem and the outside part of the pumpkin are, we can use this space in between, which is called negative space. I know I've mentioned it on here before. We can see how much distance we have, I mean, technically, in our painting between where the moon is and the pumpkin. And so with that, we're going to start creating the curve of the top of the pumpkin. And so I'm also making sure that I take a look to see how high it goes up on my page, right? So there's a little bit of room. And I'm also looking to see how far it goes over to the left side. So all of these things you should be thinking about when you're creating your drawings. So that should help a little bit about where you think things are spaced. And now we're just going to create sort of a very basic shape of our stem. Nothing fancy, just a basic shape up top. We have the top part of the stem curving like that. Okay. And we're going to go inside the stem and we're just going to create some lines for us to guide where we're going to be painting. So here's the first one here. Now, again, your lines should be light. And I'm going to leave that one right there for now. And now we're going to start with the pumpkin. All of this is mostly done with paint, but we do want to set ourselves up for where all of our lines and our pumpkin are going to go. So here again, we're going to come over here and we're going to start with our pumpkin. And so we're going to start at the top, or I should say actually where the where this part meets, and we're going to go out toward the end in a curve. And we're going to do the same thing over here but we're going to go behind, a little bit behind the stem. And we curve a bit as well, like so. Let me know if I'm going too fast. You can let me know in the chat. You can say slow down, stop. Okay. All right, now we have some fun drawing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're going to look at the basic shape of the edge of where the pumpkin is kind of sliced and sitting on top of our cat's head, right? So we come here and we're going to look at that overall shape. We're not going to worry about the details. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to kind of judge about right here is where I want to create the pumpkin shape. So the line is going to go like this, and it's going to get smaller. So we're right here. Here's 1 and 2. We're not worried about making it 3-dimensional yet. And then we go upwards. And we're going to go like this one. All right, pretty easy, right? All right, so now we're going to make it look 3-dimensional. So we're going to come back over here. And remember, all your lines should be light because you want to go back and we're going to make some detail lines. So we're going to make it 3-dimensional. So we're going to add this part of the pumpkin here. And then it's going to go here. Right? And so now we just made the inside of the pumpkin that is cut, right? This part is exposed. We're now going to move our pencil down to about this part, right where it's pointy. And we're going to add, again, the inside of the pumpkin that is exposed. And now we have a 3-dimensional pumpkin. We're going to go back to the lines afterward, but first we're going to draw the cat's eyes. This is a pretty, I always say it's a simple drawing, but it is. It's a simple drawing with lots of detail that we add in step by step. So now the eyes, but first what we're going to do is the nose. So we want the nose to be around this area on our page. And I'm making just some light lines to indicate where I want the total nose. That way, when we draw the eyes, we can make them a little bit, or as much as possible, kind of equidistant from these two lines. So if you take a look, you want to make sure that you sort of have about the same on each side. And what I just did was I went like this and I kind of measured. So this is probably about, I don't know, maybe 2 inches or so. It's okay if yours is smaller. It's okay if it's bigger. You'll just make your eyes a little smaller. And then we're going to come down to the bottom of the page in this area to draw the nostrils. Okay, so we're going to come down here and we're going to now go a little bit inside to the left here. And we're going to draw a half circle like this. That's the one part of the nostril. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And then here at the bottom, we're going to make 2 lines like this. And now we have a cute cat nose. Very basic for now. And guess what? These 2 lines that we created are going to be the start of our cat eyes. So these 2 straight lines from here, we're going to start and make the top part of the cat eye like this. Now we're going to make it round when it comes back toward the nostril, or toward the line that we created for the nostril. So see what I just did there? So I made this part at the top, and then I made the round part. And then what you're going to do over here is you're then going to create the curved part at the bottom here so that it looks like that. So again, I went like this, made a point, and now this is the black area of the cat's eye. And then you can go inside to make the middle part of the eye. Oops. And we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side, just in not in reverse, but kind of the other way. So remember, we come out here, but this one is a little bit curved like this on this side. We make the roundness of the eye. We connect that eye. And when we get to the bottom here, we leave some space between the actual eyeball and the bottom of the eye so that it goes like this. And then as we're coming up toward here, remember we kind of curve around, but this one is shaped just a little bit differently. And then we have our black slit for the eye. And one more detail over here on the left side of the cat eye is just a little bit of a curving out here like so. And one more thing to add over here on the left eye is we also are going to add sort of an kind of an underline, just like we did on the right side, the right eye. So basically space in between the actual eye and the black line of the eye. And look at that, we have a cat. All right, we're going to go into the pumpkin now. And so basically, all of the curves for the pumpkin, the lines, are going to start up here at the bottom of the top part of the pumpkin. And everything is going to kind of fan out. And so we're going to start on the left side here. And you can start to create the lines, and they don't have to be kind of straight. You can make some bumps in them as you are making them. So as you can see, they're imperfect, right? So we're talking about these thicker lines at first, and then we're going to go back and create the kind of thinner ones. All right, so here's this one. And remember, so because it's a pumpkin, usually there's some kind of bumps at the top. And then it starts to kind of curve down. Here is a bump here. So we're doing this one up here. And so along the way, I'm adding some bumps along it. And this one's going to go down into the pointed part of this one. And then going to create like a triangular part here that is a piece of the pumpkin that's sort of cut. Now, the other lines that were created, they were created with colored pencil later on. So we're going to leave those as they are. We're right now just kind of worried about the basic ones. So I'm up here again and making another bump and another kind of inverted triangle. I am going to do that small line. And we are now here. And our lines are going to curve a little bit to the left. This one right here. So there's a little bump. And we go down. And here's another part where we can kind of curve a little bit because there's a little bit of a break in the pumpkin here. Now we're going to come up top, and we have 1, 2, 3 more lines to do. This one is sort of the widest. And it comes down like so. All right, and now we've got 2 more. one up here. And again, it's going to start kind of spanning out to the right side of our paper. And then we have our last one. And we have a cute drawing of a black cat and a bat with the moon. And now we get to paint. So the other thing we want to do before we paint is we want to erase those two lines that we created for the eyes. I'm just going to erase those because it's now wide enough. And we're going to be creating a little bit of some shading here when we get to it. But we want to start off first with making sure that our lines are pretty light, even though this is a pretty heavy watercolor drawing. We use lots of layers for this one. And we also outline. So it's probably not terrible if your lines aren't light for this one in particular. So we're going to start off with the background. And that background is going to be blue and black. And I like to start off with my bigger brush. This one's actually a 10 because it's a little smaller. And so I'm going to wet my brush. Oops. Excuse me a second as my other brush is falling off. Wetting my brush. And I'm going to add the black. And I'm going to trace around the top portion of the pumpkin and also basically everything at the top. So this is with the black. Because our sky is black. So tracing around, and you can also trace around the moon and also our bat here. And just take your time. Okay, for whatever reason, somebody in my neighborhood is setting off fireworks. Is there a reason for a celebration yet tonight? I'm just curious.
It's Damali. I'm sorry, I have something in my throat.
It's
Okay.
Diwali.
Okay. I'm like, okay, I didn't know. I knew the game had started, but I don't know. I don't think.
It's an Indian festival.
Yeah. So maybe that's what the fireworks are. Very nice. So as far as the sky goes, we're going to get lighter at the top by adding water. So it's a little more transparent, as you can see here. And then it gets darker right around the edge of the pumpkin, or I'm sorry, the stem. So let me me show this up close so you can see that I really go back and I get dark all around here. And then there's some blue in here. So we're going to be making it a bit transparent so that then we can add some blue spots here. Okay, so taking some water and again, making it transparent, a little more transparent, but filling up the sky with black. I used the watercolor for this one very heavily. A lot of people asked if this was acrylic, and it's just watercolor, just very, very heavy application of watercolor. You know, and while we have the first application there, we are also going to go into our bat. And basically, the bat is rather dark on the left side and all around. So we're going to sort of outline the bat, but right over here, and I'm going to start to go closer now and move this down so you can see it. Basically, I'm sort of outlining with my brush. And if you feel like you want to use your smaller brush, please switch to that. I have a nice point on this one. You want a nice point on your brush. So I'm outlining the bat. And you want to get your watercolor very similar to like ink. So you may want to use less water and more of the paint. So we're basically like drawing with our brush. And then we're going to fill in the body with black. But again, for right now, a medium to light application. Because we're going to go back and do some shading. And just take your time. Fill in Mr. Bat. I'm kind of one of those weird people that think bats are cute. Except about 2 years ago, we actually had a bat fly in from our attic into our bedroom in the middle of the night, actually around 2 a.m. And my husband was getting it out of the window, like he had opened the window to let it fly out. But I was like, he's kind of cute, and he's like, it's not cute at 3 a.m. And he was right, but fake bats are cute, I guess, or maybe at a distance and not in your house. Yeah, for sure. All right, so we have light applications, right, of our bat our background and, or I should say, I'm sorry, I should say the sky. And then we're now going to go into the cat. So we're going to be, you know, as we do with anything, working in layers. All right. So we're still using our, the bigger brush. And now this is where we're going to start kind of molding the pumpkin using our brush. So I started right here at the point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to kind of mold the shape of the pumpkin by kind of cutting into the pumpkin with the point of my brush. Using the brush almost like a pencil, right? So I'm kind of just tracing along the outer edge of the pumpkin. And I'm going to do the same thing on the left side. I don't know why I started in the middle. I just kind of felt like it. But we're not going to go into the pumpkin yet. That comes later with the black. We're going to go into the cat now. And so we're thinking about that this cat has fur. And so again, at first we're going to do a light application of black. And what we're going to do is there is white that is over here. That is also colored pencil. I forgot to mention we want to grab a white colored pencil later on. If you have white watercolor even in your watercolors, you can use that too, but that's for later on. We are now going to focus on making the fur furry with just black and having it be more kind of transparent. So I'm going to start over here. And what I'm doing is I'm going to make kind of sweeping lines, making fur. I'm leaving the top part of the eye kind of translucent right now. Or I should say kind of like more of a lighter gray, but also leaving room or space to add white later on. So we're creating fur in that section of the eye. And we're going to stay on the left side for now. Continuing with this light application of the black watercolor. So going underneath the eye. And you can see that what I'm doing is I'm going back and forth creating the fur, but leaving space or spaces for right now of the white of the paper. So it's going to look a little bit messy right now. But we're going to proceed into the nose. or I should say the side of the nose and down below. So remember, we created the curved line for the nostril. We're going to outline it a little bit with the black. And while we're at it, we'll do the same with the other one. Other side, I should say, the nostril. And now we're going to go back to the left side of the nostril, and we're going to concentrate a little bit darker black right here, because that's a shadow, like so. And now we're going to start adding some curved lines on the side of the nose on the left side, going this way, right? So this is fur. I'm going to dip our brush in some water, and we're now going to paint the nose a little bit, watered down black for now. So it's going to come out like a grayish. And we're going to go straight up toward where the top of the pumpkin is and fill in the other side here with some of the light, kind of light gray. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're filling in the first layer. So remember, we come here up at the top, like so. We're going to go around the eye at the top. So remember, we're going to kind of create hairs. Kind of looks like, I think I just gave him an eyebrow. And then same thing, you're going to leave spaces of the paper, the white of the paper, as you are creating the fur around the eye. And you'll do the same underneath the eye, right? You're going to do these sweeping, kind of sweeping strokes. You know, making sure that everything is just, for now, a light to medium layer. And you're going to rinse your brush because we're going to add orange to our pumpkin.
Can you just give us a few minutes before you start the pumpkin?
Absolutely.
Thanks, sorry.
Yeah, no worries at all. I definitely want to know if I'm going too fast or if you need more time, so thank you. A lot of detail with this one. And you can pick and choose, how much detail you want to add.
This is fascinating. When you were saying like, oh, we're gonna make it look like there's actual fur, I was like, no way. Oh, look, it's working. I'm not a fan of watercolor, but I'm hanging in
Oh, I
here.
know. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people aren't. That is why I also added colored pencil. I am not a whiz at watercolor either. So I use colored pencils for texture. Um, one of these days I'll, sit down more with myself and learn a few more techniques, but colored pencil to the rescue.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that part.
Always. Always, always. It's what finished mine off. I mean, I used a lot of colored pencil in this for the shading. Um, yeah, so it's okay. Remember, we're doing the first layer of everything. Um, so we're going to be adding the orange next for the pumpkin parts. So let me know if you still need some more time, anybody. But we're going to add a basic orange, and then we will add some yellow into it to make it lighter. Okay. And then obviously we're going to be adding some darker shading using like reddish orange. This is in watercolor. Okay, so we're going to start with some watered down orange. So basically, I'm just going to add a little water to my paint palette here. And we're going to start here on the left side. And so you can see where the lines are. And we're going to go up against each of the lines. So I'm going on the left side of the lines. So I'm kind of outlining with my orange, kind of on the left side of the lines. It doesn't have to be terribly dark. Mine is like medium, because again, this is just the first layer. You're also going to paint using that orange underneath where you can see it becoming three-dimensional. So that is in these spaces. So here, here, and this one here. And so you can see it's not real dark, but just that added bit is going to create a little bit of the suggestion that it's going to get darker eventually. And so now what we're going to do is we're first going to jump up into our moon with our orange. And basically, we're going to do, again, kind of a light to medium painting of the entire moon using the orange. So we want to create some light in our moon. So down here, we're going to leave it blank for now. That's because we're going to go back in and we're going to add some yellow. We're going to do that to the rest of our sections, our pumpkin sections as well. So we're going to go in and we're going to add some light orange, meaning some, slightly watered down, right? So, and we're going to go like this. We're going to start in this section. And basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of going in the middle of each section, but also toward the left. So a section meaning where, the two lines are. So here's a section, right? There's a section. So what we want to do is create dimension for these sections. The way we do that is we use light and dark in order to do that. So we have to create various colors using the orange, and we'll be adding in yellow. So it looks like I'm adding stripes, right? So for now, let's say that we are sort of adding some stripes, but you'll see that I'm very light in my application right now. And sometimes I get a little lighter by adding some water. And sometimes I don't cover the section at all fully, like in these sections here. Take your time. I did not add yellow yet to the orange, Renee, but that was an excellent question. We will be adding yellow next. For now, it's just lightened orange. So I kind of start off, with some orange on my brush, and then I fade it out as it gets down toward the eyes. This would even look kind of neat, right? Just having it like this, it would look kind of spooky, but we want more detail and more colors. So that is your first layer for your pumpkin and your moon. And I'll let everybody catch up because we're going to go to our first layer in the stem. All right, we're going to go into the stem. And the stem first is going to be brown. So we're going to grab our basic brown. Which for me, I actually have to mix mine. It should be sort of a, basic brown. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in to certain spots to make it a little bit, make the darker parts. So we're going to go right next to where this part is, and also in the curved part of the stem up top. So right here. And we're going to keep going. So we're going to, again, kind of draw a bit with our paint. We started here at the top, and we're just kind of creating some line work in our stem. These are the darker areas of our stem. Now we're going to go into our cat again, but this time in the eyes. And we're going to add yellow for the eyes. And so basically, we're going to go in the eyes, and we're going to paint yellow around the, around the black slits that we haven't made yet. So we're going to cover the entire eye with yellow, both eyes. Now, the one on the right side has two spots that I've either left blank, like I make triangles with the watercolor, or if you have white, you can use white acrylic paint later on, or if you have white watercolor, you'll go back and use that for the whites of the eyes. If you don't have any of that, you can leave it by using the white of the paper. So what that's going to look like is basically I'm going to paint like a triangle of the white paper. So do you see that right there? There's a little white triangle. I just did that just with the yellow, so that's going to be the light part of the eye. And then there's another one on the right side here. And it's sort of half moon shaped. Crescent shaped is the word I'm looking for. Half moon shaped. Can I still use jet lag as my excuse? Probably not.
You could use jet lag for the next 10 days.
Oh, thank you. Yay. Thank you, Michael. So, as you can see here, I have left parts of the eye white, the white of the paper. You know, I am going to go back later and add, some white pen. You can also use a white crayon, a white, like I said, white acrylic paint if you wanted. What else? Oh, white charcoal might work too. You just want to get a bit of the, the sparkle in the eye, the glossiness of the eye. But so we've got the yellow. Now we're going to use that yellow and we're going to go back into the pumpkin. So as far as the pumpkin is concerned, we're now adding yellow on top of the orange. And on the two on the left, we add some yellow. The two sections on the left, we're adding yellow. And on the third one, we add the yellow on top of the orange, and then we're going to go a little bit into the white of the pumpkin, or the paper. And the way I do it is I add a little bit of water so that basically the yellow, you can see it kind of looks watered down, but as it goes on top of the orange, meaning the yellow going on top of the orange, it deepens the orange. Basically, what we want to do is we want to cover the entire space of each section, but we want some of the sections to come out lighter. So for now, we're using the yellow. So you can see that is already deepening the colors. So we're going to work through each section and we're adding yellow. So you can add a little more yellow in some of the spots where the orange is a little darker. Right now, it doesn't matter as much because we're just adding our second layer. But we are about to we're going to start getting darker. And when you're ready, you want to add yellow to your moon on the left side of the moon. Oops. And the bottom of the moon. Remember how we left the bottom portion of the moon, the white of the paper? You're going to add yellow. So everything is still very yellowish orange. When you're ready, you're going to add yellow to your, a wash of yellow on your stem as well. Okay, so we're going to go back now into the moon. And we're going to start applying our orange mixed with red. So again, we're going to start now in the moon, and we're going to mix up orange and red. Now, if you have a reddish orange in your set, you can use that. But for most of us, probably have to mix it. So I'm going to grab my orange here and put it in the side here. And now I'm going to add the red to it so that now I have a reddish orange. This reddish orange is going to serve as our darker parts of the pumpkin and the moon. All right, so that reddish orange is now going to go into the top part of the moon. You're going to see that it looks pretty thick. I'm going to paint it at the top and kind of outline the bat. As well. So the entire bat, we're going to outline with this reddish orange. The other thing we're going to outline when you're ready is the bottom portion of the moon on the inside. So not on the black side, right? Right on the inside. You can also go inside the eyes. So we're going to start using this color now, this orangey red. So you might want to mix up a bit because we are now going to go into our pumpkins. So we'll come back into the moon, but we want to now go into our pumpkins. And basically, we're going to start adding some darks in certain sections. So on the first section, we're going to go like this. We're in these three sections here. So I just added this one, and this one. So the darker parts of the pumpkin would normally be where the pumpkin is kind of turning a little bit, like right up here, right? So this is shading. We're doing a little bit of shading right now. And then we're going to blend using some water and a little bit of yellow and orange. Here we are in the next section. We're going to take that darkness down to this section here. See, and you can see it's already getting more vibrant. And we're going to add some here at the bottom of your pumpkin. And along this line on the left side. And the next 3 sections that we're going to add this darkness to is going to be the top parts of these 3 portions. So meaning right here, here, and the top part here. Now we're going to add some good old orange. And we're going to start shading a bit more of the rest of the pumpkin. So what I'm doing here is taking a little bit of water and blending. And then sometimes I might add some yellow to it, depending if I want to get it a little bit deeper. But the goal is to take that orange that we've added there and kind of blend it into the rest of the pumpkin so that it doesn't look like it's a line anymore. So now I'm just taking regular orange and a little bit of water and streaking, right? Using it kind of in a streaky way so that there are portions of the pumpkin that are different colored parts of the orange. You always want a little bit darker orange right at the top of where the bumps are. And sometimes here at the bottom toward the edge there. So again, I'm just taking water and I'm kind of shading and pulling along the colors that we already added and doing it in strokes. If you're not sure you can just use a little more water to blend it first so that it doesn't all look like it's all just orange. But this is our kind of third layer here. And we're using, again, orange. You can add some yellow to spots if you want, but really the water to blend. And you can see that I'm pulling along the color into the whole section of pumpkin. We also want to finish up our moon by doing the same thing, adding a bit of water to where we had the orange. And we don't want to add any more orange to the moon. We're just going to pull that orange using water a little bit, and we're going to shade the moon. Now you can add a little bit of a little bit more sort of darker orange to this section here on the right to make it a little darker. You can even add a little bit of some brown. I just added some brown to the orange on the right side of the moon, just right in there. So we just want to get that right side a little bit darker than how we have it on the left side of the moon. And then our basically the top part of the pumpkin here, we're going to add some more brown. Grab my brown. My mixed brown in this set is not, I'm not loving it. So going back to my Crayola brown. So we want to add some brown now to the stem. This is brown on top of how we started adding a little bit of the brown already with the yellow. Our stem, we use a lot of colored pencil on once that dries. And if everybody's okay with an extra 10 minutes, since I know we started a little bit later, we can come down to the bottom to finish the eyes and build up the hair. And then our final part will be adding the colored pencil. So if you want to switch to your smaller brush for the eyes, I would recommend doing so if you have one. We're basically going to be adding orange to the eyes. We have the yellow base. And we're going to do a bit of shading just like we did with the pumpkin. And we start up at the top of the eye. And also basically outlining inside the eye at the bottom. Like so. And we're going to stay with the eye and basically start to shade using that orange inside the eye. And we're going to kind of dab some more water in here so that we're shading around most of the eye, except you can see that I've left some of the yellow around this portion of the eye and a little bit at the bottom. So again, this is just orange on top of the yellow. And then adding some water to kind of, you know, shade around the eye. And we do the same in the other eye. And then we're going to add some red when we're done with that. Now we're going to still use our smaller brush because we're going to get into our black for the eye. So this is where we want to create the black to be very inky, you know, very dark. So I'm going to switch back to my smaller brush for now. And we're basically going to paint the inside of the black slit of the eye, but we're going to create the top part of the slit. We're going to separate it using the black and kind of outlining, because we're going to add brown to that top portion of it and a little bit of either gray or a watered down version of your black. So again, this is the black slit, both black slits of the eye. or eyes. And when you're ready, you can also then outline your eye using the black. Now, if you feel more comfortable and you want to use your black colored pencil, because we are going to be going over this in colored pencil anyway, you can do that now if you feel like you might be more steady with the colored pencil. You can do that now with the outlining and the filling in around the eye. So what we're doing is we are outlining both eyes in black. And going along the outer edge, also using our black, and filling in the portion of the eye towards the edge. But again, if you want to just use your black colored pencil, you are welcome to do that. So remember, you're going to outline the top part of the eye and the bottom part of the eye using your black. Now we're going to go back up to the top of our background, and we're going to add a little bit of blue on top of our black. This is in the background. So basically the blue, we are now adding on top of the black that we used earlier for the sky. We're adding a layer of blue around the whole thing. Now we're going to go back to our cat at the bottom, and we're going to switch to our larger brush. And we're going to start getting really heavy with our black, going up against our pumpkin around his head area. So we're going to outline right underneath that pumpkin, going very carefully, filling in that area once again with black, this time very inky. And we're going to start filling in our cat. We're going to make it really dark right underneath the pumpkin. So again, adding that black very darkly. And then as you go down, kind of, I guess, toward his nose, you're adding the black very darkly, but again, you're creating fur and layering it, making it a little bit darker, but still lighter than how you have it underneath the pumpkin. And you do that by adding a little bit of water. And just keep layering with fur. Letting the watercolor run out on your brush in certain sections. You want it darker underneath his eyes and on the sides of his nose. So see how I'm letting it kind of run out, meaning using the water as to get it lighter. And you want it really light on the right side of your paper. So you're now filling in the cat on either side of his nose. We haven't done his nose yet. Remember to leave spaces of the white of your paper, and also, creating curved lines so that it looks like fur. When you're ready, you can use your black watercolor in the lines of his nostrils And you're going to keep building up the darker areas by applying more of the black watercolor right where the top of his head is and underneath the pumpkin. So I just keep adding a little more black there. And in the middle of his, at the top portion of his nose. And on either side of his nostrils. But you do want to go back into his nose there and make it a medium dark where the bottom portion of his nose is here. And a little lighter in the rest. Now, when you're done with that, you're going to let that dry a little bit. And we're now going to move to our colored pencil, our black colored pencil. So the bottom portion is going to be a little wet still. So you want to make sure that you can work at the top part of your pumpkin. And basically, you're now going to start outlining your pumpkin using your black colored pencil. And you're going to go inside. Remember the lines that we created on each section. You're now going to take your colored pencil and you're going to recreate those lines. It's going to have a very illustrative effect. So I'm skipping spaces as I'm creating or outlining those lines, but see how it looks really nice. I'm even going to go down here and I'm going to color in that triangle that we left here. And you can make certain portions a little darker by pressing on using your colored pencil, right? And then you can lighten up for other sections. I like to go darker right at the top, right? You're kind of using it almost like charcoal. When you go darker and you go in one spot and sort of shade, that makes it look like that there is a recess in the pumpkin, right? So there's a deep sort of area. You know, you want to vary your lines, sometimes going a little darker and then sometimes, you know, going really lightly. And we want to make some cracks in our pumpkins, right? So maybe right here, we're going to make a crack. And then there's a really light line coming from that crack, right? And so you can do things like that. And you're going to add light, kind of spidery lines. That are going to give your pumpkin a very illustrative effect. So here is, my finished one, and you can see there's some spidery lines here, right? We've got some cracks here. So I'm varying the lines with just the colored pencil. And remember the part at the bottom, this part underneath, you want to shade that. And the way I did it was I used lines, strokes to shade, and I outlined the top portion of it. So again, keep outlining your pumpkin, going inside and outside with those lines. You're going to color in your bat a little more with your black colored pencil to shade. I like to leave the right side a little bit lighter. And this is where, you get to have some fun with the colored pencil, right? So you can go a little darker. This is all just black. And then I go on top of the blue in the sky using the black colored pencil to create depth in the sky. See, you've got the blue underneath, so it's nice, right? But I'm now using the black on top of the watercolor as shading. In the sky. So basically, I use a lot of the black colored pencil in order to get more depth. This is where you would also pick up your blue colored pencil and you add texture to the sky on top of the watercolor and the black. I'm gonna grab my blue. So it really is kind of a mixed media piece. You can choose how much, colored pencil you want in your sky. And then finally, you're going to do the same with your cat, and you can start to add more lines in the grayer parts of your fur. So see, here I am going back and creating more furry lines on top of the gray, more strokes using the black. I'm even going to color in a little more of the eyes to make them a little more blacker, a little more inky. A little more depth to surrounding the eyes. using my black colored pencil. All of this is using my black colored pencil on top of the watercolor to get texture and more depth. And then I added those other colored pencils, the mahogany, because you can go back into the pumpkin and you could add those colors. But I use a lot of the black colored pencil basically for the fur. You know, it also kind of adds to the spookiness of the piece. You know, the texture, it looks like charcoal. I even add a little bit of blue in the fur. And as you can see, I'm just kind of building up that fur using the black colored pencil. And like I said, later on, I like to go back and add some kind of watered down white to the eyes, to the glow in the eyes. That's after everything, you know, I'm really finished with adding all the texture. Just making it look like fur by using the black colored pencil. I can't wait to see what these look like. I know we ran over, but I'm so excited to see what these look like. One last thing with the top part of the pumpkin. Again, I used black colored pencil and some brown colored pencil for the stem. Oh, my black just broke. Let me go grab another black so I can show you. So here I am using black. And again, I'm adding visual texture using the colored pencil on top of the watercolor. So in the top part, I even changed direction. But I'm basically using the black and some brown in the darker portion, darker parts of the this top part, and I add some line work right where it meets the pumpkin. You know, and I can layer more of my watercolor if I want to fill this in where the eyes, you know, around where the eyes are. And then one last thing I like to do is I like to add a little bit of red colored pencil to the eyes around the edge of the eyes toward the bottom. And you can sort of, you know, you can fade it out into the orange. See, that's just colored pencil. Red colored pencil. So I'm curious to see what everyone's looks like. I am going to stop my recording.